Let's go via Skype to Washington, D.C. and continue the conversation now, bringing in our good friend Armstrong Williams, the host of the eponymously named Armstrong Williams Show. Armstrong, thanks so much for spending some time with us again on America's Forum.
Good morning, Congressman.
Very much appreciate your time. When you hear the Attorney General and the President talk about ending racial profiling, putting forth stringent new guidelines, what do you expect those guidelines might include?
Listen, there is an aspect of this country that feel maligned, disrespected, devalued, and whether that's real or not, as American and Congressman, you're being a member that austere body at one time understands that we are our brother's keeper. Whether we disagree with the president's approach and the Attorney General, it is something that needs to be addressed, whether that is placing cameras, whether it's how we train police officers, because the thing that we don't talk about and what gets lost in this, Congressman, is that 90% of law enforcement don't shoot people down because they have the power, they have the badge, and it's their judgment. Most of them, through experience and through common sense and judgment, are able to navigate and not use deadly force to apprehend and bring control to a situation that can get out of hand. Obviously, Officer Wilson was afraid. He was 28 years old, and he's fearful for his life. And he reacted. He followed his training. And yes, someone died in the process, and that's unfortunate. Something has to be done. What that something is, the president's ideas, their ideas, because you're not going to ever end racial profiling, especially in the majority of these cities, in inner cities, where the majority of killing is done by young men who happen to be black. I mean, how else are you going to make a determination, and how else are you going to come to some conclusion that somebody else is committing these crimes when the majority look a certain way? We have got to get to the point where in those communities, they must feel their self-worth. They must feel their value. They must feel that there's opportunity for them in America instead of laying in some wasteland and these things that we call projects, where when many people grew up, decades ago, they had firefighters, teachers, lawyers, doctors coming from that community where they had real role models and they had fathers. Something has gone terribly wrong in America, and it's going to take all of us to try to find some resolution to this problem.
Armstrong, two takeaways from your opening comments. Number one, perception becomes reality. And number two, the fact that law enforcement, police, are doing their jobs and not on a power trip in the vast majority of cases, and yet there seems to be a demonization of the police. For example, one of my old friends from Phoenix, Charles Barkley, addressed the situation in Ferguson during an interview on 97.5 The Fanatic Sports Radio. Let's listen to what Chuck said and then get your reaction.
We have to be really careful with the cops, man, because if it wasn't for the cops, we'd be living in the wild, wild west in our neighborhoods. I think we can't pick out certain incidents that don't go our way and act like the cops are all bad. I hate when we do that, because think about it. Do you know how bad some of these neighborhoods would be if it wasn't for the cops?
Armstrong, 20 seconds, your response to Charles Barkley's thought.
He's absolutely correct, and this is not really about law enforcement. It's what happens when white police officers shoot somebody who happens to be black. Blacks can shoot blacks, black cops can shoot black kids. But it's more of the demonization of white men, because they have used them as the poster child now, everything that is wrong with America. You can discriminate against them, and now you can hold a different standard for them when they wear the badge. That's what it's about. It's much deeper than what we want to talk about.
Fair enough, and because the topic is so deep, we're going to ask you to stay with us, Armstrong. Back on the other side, more with Armstrong Williams here on America's Forum.